All right, yes, we actually have a trigger now in HighLevel for when you send an outbound message. So this is super helpful if you've ever had clients where you have to like automate their outbound. When they get a new lead, you're sending a bunch of texts, but you want to be able to stop when the client starts engaging with the lead. Previously, there has been no way to do this. It's actually insane. And so I built a solution. In this video, I'm going to basically show you how it works, and then I'll walk you through how I actually ended up building it out. And yeah, the other thing that's really valuable is call duration. I realized midway through doing this that HighLevel sort of has a way to know the call duration, but you really want to be able to stop the automated outreach when you figure out if the client has been having if they have a 5-minute phone call, then they probably talk to that lead. Whereas if they've only had 20-second phone calls, it just went to voicemail, right? So let's get into how this works. Let me just go to my workflow where I've been testing this. And essentially what we do is we choose one of these triggers. So let me add a new one, and it's going to be something. So right here we have outbound call and message trigger, and we either have outbound email sent, outbound message sent, or outbound call completed. And so I'll just choose the message sent. And for this, we can select a couple filters. We can choose the channel. So I'm just going to choose SMS or text. And then the message source can be either the mobile app or a workflow. So this should actually say app. I'll update that, but basically it'll be the the interface, on the web or on the phone. If they manually send a text, then that's going to be app, and then if it's a workflow, obviously it's an automated text. So we'll just do mobile app. Be careful. Well, I'm testing this by sending myself a text, but if your trigger is workflow, and then you send a text from that will trigger the next one, and it'll go on infinitely, and then probably HighLevel servers will explode. So anyways, we're just going to go with manual, and let me publish this too. And then what we can do is we can also see a few different details. So if that trigger is the call, we'll be able to put out the call recording URL as well as the call duration. So if you ever want to do something like get the call recording transcribed and summarized, you can use this URL right here to do that. We can also use the call duration to figure out is the client doing a good job. And then if I come down here, we also have some parameters for the message sent, like message content, so we can see exactly what the content was. We can see the channel, the status, and the source. And so I'll just put in the content here, and we'll just put quotes around it. And then, by the way, we have the contact ID here, so if you want, you can use that contact ID for whatever you want to do with it, but you don't actually have to. The cool thing about this is it's just going to find the right contact by default, and it's just going to hook them into the workflow. So you don't have to worry about finding a contact by contact ID. So now that that's plugged in, I'm just going to go back to myself here, make sure it's published. Yep. And I'll just shoot myself a text. It says test. And as you can see, I've been testing this out just a little bit here. So it's pending. And then a second or so after it's delivered, then we should get our response. Okay, here we go. So still outgoing, but as we can see, it gave us back the content of the message, and then the recording and duration are blank because it wasn't a phone call. So that's essentially how it works. That's basically all it does. Now I'll show you how I implemented this, because you might not believe this, but this is a fucking pain in the ass to do. So let me show you. The first thing we have is our event receiver. So when we go over to our endpoints, we have an event, right? And so what we're doing, actually, let me back up. We have our triggers here. So whenever you in the workflow builder update a trigger or delete one or create one, what I have to do is I have to save those changes to my database. And if I come back to my terminal here, we can see where I just created that workflow for testing. You can actually see this event that I got passed. So we have an ID, we have a key for the event, we have all this information, and I have to save this to my database because whenever an action happens that I need to post back to you, I need to send it to this particular URL right here, okay? And then what we do is we wait for events. And so when we get an outbound message, then we're going to trigger a task that'll handle that. dude, this gets so fucking crazy. So, okay, what we have is estimated duration and call recording, and then we're trying to get the call recording duration. And by the way, if you don't have call recordings enabled, or if you're using Twilio and the call recordings are private, it's not going to work. You got to make sure they're public and call recordings are turned on, obviously, in order to get the call duration. And then we trigger this task, which is going to find all of the relevant triggers. So that's based on your location ID and the app ID. And what we're going to do is we're going to find all of the relevant triggers from our active triggers table, and we're going to find all the ones that pertain to that event. So if I come back to my database here, I'll just show you triggers active, so we can see that one that I just created showed up. And if we go to, wait, what do we want to, oh, yeah, actually I'll go to triggers. So these are the 3 triggers we have for this app. And if we go to events, we'll see this only fires when we have an outbound message. So all of these are the same, but this one's also outbound SMS, outbound FB, and outbound IG, and this one's outbound call. So we're looking for those types of triggers, and then what we're doing is for each trigger, we're filtering out all the ones that don't have the right message type, and then we're passing that off to a separate task, which is going to handle the the actual triggering of that. Okay, so it's called process trigger. And then we have our process trigger task, which is taking in, basically, it's a payload like, let me show you actually. So process trigger. So this is the payload that we're handling. We have a sample payload, which is used to construct the new payload. So we take contact ID, call duration, recording URL. We also have, wait, where's the process trigger? Oh, filters. Okay, so this filter is blank because call outbound has no trigger filter that we can use. But for this one, our filters are the message type has to be SMS, or the source has to be app. Okay, so maybe you can see this is a little fucking hard to process. And so what we have is a function here that's going to go through these filters and make sure that we're actually processing only the right events. And if it is the right event, then we're going to actually just get an access token so we can make that post request. And then we're going to construct the new payload here. Whoops. And then we're going to post it over to the target URL, which needs it. And we have to pass in our API version as well as our access token. And yeah, that'll be basically Bob will be your uncle. That's exactly everything you just saw is what happened in the background while I was testing it out. And yeah, I mean, building triggers. You would think it's super easy, you would think you would just you just send the data. Not the case. Not the case. You gotta do the filtering yourself, which I think is hilarious, by the way, because I feel like they could easily have done it where you just send them a payload and then they choose whether or not to fire the trigger based on the filter. But no, it's totally up to you, which is fine, but yeah, it's just kind of confusing here. But yeah, it's working. So by the way, this app, it's not going to be available right when I release this video, but if you click the link below, you'll be able to learn more about it and sign up for early access, or it'll be out after tomorrow. I mean, I just have to publish it basically, so it'll be out. You can download it, try it out, let me know what you think, and that's basically the whole video. Thank you for watching.